Hi there, I'm the book lady, and ooh, chilly outside, isn't it? But you know what? We're celebrating winter and Christmas here on the Book Lady, and I brought two books that I really think you're going to enjoy. Hey, do you like my pen? Isn't that fun? It lights up. Now, I don't know how good the battery is in this thing, so it may just stop shining, but I turned it on just for you. I'm the book lady. I bring two books and we read them and we have fun and we talk about them a little bit. And I'm so glad you are here with us on this very special episode. We are going to read Ezra Jack Keat's book. It's The Snowy Day. You're going to like this very much, especially if you love the snow. Snowy Day. Then we're going to read The Polar Express. Now, some of you may be very familiar with this book because they turned it into a movie. But I'm going to tell you something. I think the books are better than the movie. I do. Beautiful illustrations, a very interesting story, and I think we are going to start with, now Chris Van Allsburg, he wrote this book, yes, but he also did the illustrations. Come on, what are the illustrations? The pictures. Yeah. And I just think, here's a little taste of them. Do you see this? This young man is in his bed. I think it's probably Christmas Eve, and he's looking out the window. Wonder what he sees. Let's start. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I just knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. Wow. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. Then he looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe, and I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well, are you coming?" he said. "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me on board. Wow. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. They're heading north. Soon, There were no lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. Wow, that picture is so good. You can see the train going by because the windows are lit. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we could scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. I love the pictures. They're just wonderful. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren, that means nothing's on it, desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city, standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "Oh, they're gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look!" shouted one of the children. The elves!" Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train grew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. Oh, the reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. Oh, it was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." Well, he jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug, and he told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the train, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Well, let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. Oh, it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. When he shook the bell, they didn't hear anything. And this is what the author of the book, he gave a little note. "At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe." So let me ask you, can you hear that? I think that book it's just an interesting book. It has wonderful pictures. Oh, let me show you. Now, of course, you've seen some of these pictures, but I'm gonna show you some that I really like. I like when they're up in the mountains, they're headed, but look, it's almost like there's a belt around that mountain, and that is the Polar Express headed to the North Pole. I also love the picture near the end. He's with his little sister Sarah, and they're looking inside that box, and there's a little bell. They both can hear the bell, but their mother and father cannot hear the bell. Did you hear the bell? Okay. Now we're going to move on to, hey, how do you like this? It's snowing. Have you ever made snowflakes? You know, you can make them with paper. Aren't these good? And you can make them, sometimes people make them with coffee filters. It's kind of a good idea. But this book is about real live snow. Oh, I hope you enjoy it the way I did. Whenever the author talks about snow falling, this is the picture we see. See? All right, here we go. One winter morning, Peter woke up and looked out the window. Snow had fallen during the night, and it covered everything as far as he could see. Don't you love that? When you wake up in the morning and you look out your window and it snowed overnight. After breakfast, he put on his snowsuit and ran outside. The snow was piled up very high along the street to make a path for walking. Somebody had gone out there and shoveled. But when you shovel, that snow you're shoveling, usually you throw it to the side, and that's big piles of snow. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His feet sank into the snow. He walked with his toes pointing out like this. He walked with his toes pointing in like that, because he was having fun seeing the different shapes that he could make in the snow. Then he dragged his feet slowly to make tracks. And he found something sticking out of the snow that made a new track. Oh, there's nothing like being out in the snow with a good stick. It was a stick that was just right for smacking a snow-covered tree. And you know, sometimes when you do that, all that snow that's sticking to the tree drops down. Well, sure enough, down fell the snow. Plop, right on Peter's head. He thought it would be fun to join the big boys in their snowball fight, but he knew he wasn't old enough yet. Yeah, not yet. But it looks like he got hit by a snowball. So he made a smiling snowman. And he made angels. Have you ever made snow angels? They're fun. You lie in the snow and you make your legs, and you take your arms, and look what you get. You know, even old ladies like me can make snow angels. Where we have trouble is getting back up. He pretended he was a mountain climber. He climbed up a great big, tall, heaping mountain of snow. And he slid all the way down. Now that's fun. He picked up a handful of snow and another and still another. He packed it round and firm and put the snowball in his pocket for tomorrow. Then he went into his warm house. He told his mother all about his adventures while she took off his wet socks. And he thought and thought and thought about them. And it looks like his mommy made him take a warm bath. Before he got into bed, he looked in his pocket. His pocket was empty. The small snowball wasn't there. He felt very sad. But while he slept, he dreamed that the sun had melted all the snow away. But when he woke up, his dream was gone. The snow was still everywhere. New snow was falling. Oh, you gotta love that. When it snows for like 2 days. After breakfast, he called to his friend across the hall, and they went out together into the deep, deep snow. Wow. And see, there's that picture. Snow, snow, snow. Oh, it's making me want to go out and play in the snow. I tell you, I used to love really big snows. Just where it was just so deep you about couldn't stand it, and you didn't want to come in. But then you started to lose feeling in your feet, and it was time to run in and warm up a little bit, but you couldn't wait to get out there. And it kind of made you mad when the snow plows came and they were trying to get rid of the snow. Oh, I wanted the snow to stay there. So much fun. I just thought you'd love that. Because, it's winter and we can always hope for a big snow day, right? Now, I have a little bit of time left, so we are going to read a fable. Let's see which one I'm going to do for you. How about the young rooster? Now, the rooster is kind of the big boy amongst all the chickens. Well, a young rooster was summoned to his father's bedside. "Son, my time has come to an end," said his father. "Now it is your turn to crow up the morning sun each day." The young rooster watched sadly as his father's life slipped away. Early the next morning, the young rooster flew up to the roof of the barn. He stood there, facing east. "Oh, I have never done this before. I must try my best." And he lifted his head and crowed. A weak, scratchy croak was all that he was able to make. Well, the sun did not come up. Clouds covered the sky, and a damp drizzle fell all day. All the animals of the barn came to the rooster. "This is a disaster," said the pig. "We need our sunshine," shouted a sheep. "Rooster, you must crow much louder," said a bull. "The sun is 93 million miles away. How do you expect it to hear you?" Very early the next morning, the young rooster flew up to the roof of the barn again. He took a deep breath. He threw back his head and crowed. It was the loudest crow that was ever crowed since the beginning of roosters. The animals on the farm were awakened from their sleep with a start. "What a noise!" cried the pig. "Oh, my ears hurt," said the sheep. "My head is splitting." "Well, I'm sorry, but I was only doing my job," said the rooster, and he said this with a great deal of pride, for he saw, far to the east, the tip of the morning sun coming up over the trees. Now, this is a fable, and you know fables have a moral. Remember? I've told you a moral is what you learn from this very short little story. A first failure may prepare the way for later success. So important. When you are told to do something, let's say your mother asks you to set the table. And you try, but you don't do a very good job. You have the forks on the wrong side, and you forgot to give them knives, and there's no salt and pepper. So your mother says, "I'm going to show you how we do this." And we put the fork on the left, and you need to have a napkin. I'll bet you the next time you set the table, you'll do it just right. Sometimes we have to do things not necessarily wrong, but not as well as they could or should be done in order to finally get where we're the best. And that poor little rooster, I think he was probably a little nervous. So he couldn't really crow. He just didn't do it right. It didn't wake up the animals, and they said, you got to give us a good cock-a-doodle-doo here. And sure enough, he figured it out. He took a deep breath and cock-a-doodle-doo! And there you go. And if you've ever gone to a county fair and listened to the roosters, that's what they sound like, and they are noisy. My pin's still lighting up. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed our fable and learned something from that and gotten excited about a snow day. Isn't that fun? Let's hope for a snow day. And then, look, a snow day. Wouldn't it be fun to have giant flakes like this falling for 2 days? And then the Polar Express. Such a lovely book. But the star of this book was what? Can you hear it? I'm the book lady, and until next time, bye-bye.